One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I have a confession to make to you today. It's one I'm a little embarrassed about because it feels like I have let so many people down, but it's also one of those things that no one was even watching or paying attention to know that I missed something really big. And I know this comes from being the youngest. So I have two older brothers, and I feel like it's like, oh my God, I forgot somebody's birthday. Have you ever had that feeling? And it's actually funny. I'm recording this today on my brother's birthday. But do you ever have that feeling where you're like, oh my gosh, like I totally forgot that this big birthday, big anniversary, big celebration was today. And I didn't congratulate the person and tell them like, congratulations or happy anniversary or wow, what a big milestone. That's what today's episode feels like, because this is episode 400. This is episode 400 of the Proffitt Podcast, and I kind of dropped the ball. This is why I said I have a confession to share with you, because I dropped the ball a little bit. I didn't do the typical planning. Like, I didn't put together some big giveaway. I didn't have a special guest. I don't have this thing that's like, oh, we hit 400 episodes. We're incredible. We're amazing. But also, I'm like, we need to reflect. We do need to pause and take a second, because this is a big deal. And I think that the reason why it kind of slipped past me is because to date, and this is where things are going to get a little wild, I've actually published over 1,200 podcast episodes. Yes, you heard that right. 1,200 podcast episodes. And so for me to look at this, I was like, oh, it's just 400. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. It is a huge, huge deal. And I want to pause and really celebrate it today, because I'm the type of person, I don't do this enough. I am an Enneagram 3, and I tend to achieve a goal, and then I'm already like 7 steps into the next goal that I want to achieve. So I don't often take a pause and just really celebrate. So that's what we're doing today. We're lighting the candles and we are celebrating. Like imagine you have on your party hat and maybe your favorite cocktail or adult beverage or coffee or whatever it is. And I want you to celebrate with me because I actually want to share 5 things that I've learned from having 400 episodes of this podcast. I could probably share 500 things that I've learned, but I want to talk about the things that have helped me in this part of my journey. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Proffitt Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Proffitt, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, so we are just going to dive right in because like I said, I have a few lessons that I have learned from having so many podcasts on this specific podcast. So the Proffitt Podcast, I want to give you a quick origin story. If you haven't listened to episode 1, right? If you have not gone back and listened to every single episode, which is totally fine. By the way, I am not judging. I don't go back and listen to a podcast that I find and listen to every single one, especially when they have 400 episodes. But I want to go back to the genesis moment of me launching the podcast because I did it all wrong. There's so many things that I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back and tell my baby podcaster version of myself and say, do this, don't do that. You messed up here. Don't ever do that again. And this was totally wrong. But in reality, that's not kind. I'm not being kind to myself. I got to give myself more grace because I did the best that I could with what I have. And it's what I encourage you to do as well. But I remember I wanted to start a podcast that helped other people. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't really know what it would turn into. I just knew the facts of I have this incredible network of women through blogging networks. I took this blogging course and I was connected to these incredible women. We started an accountability pod. I got to know them. There are people that I've grown up with, people that are friends of my family, people that I've known for years. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just want to really highlight and spotlight these people that have these incredible stories and share them with the world. And I tried it with blogging, wasn't great. So I was like, let's try this with a podcast. And so that's really where it started. And I created the Rookie Life, which was the very beginning. You can go back if you do want to go back to episode 1 and you're like, oh, I just found you, Crystal. What are you all about? Where did you come from? Go back to my roots, okay? I just totally, Garth Brooks just popped in my head, blame it all on my roots. I showed up in boots and I ruined your black tie affair. That's exactly what happened. I just kind of showed up to the party and was like, I don't really know what's going on, but here's my story. Here's what I'm going to share today. And that was how everything got started in 2018. We're actually about to hit our 5-year mark. So in June 2018 is when we first put up the trailer and launched everything for what was the Rookie Life, which is now the Proffitt Podcast. So that's a quick highlight. If you didn't know the origin story of how we got started around here, there you go. Now you know. But I did say that I'm going to share some lessons with you. So lesson number 1 is I had to put myself out there. I had this burning desire. And maybe this is where you are. Maybe you're listening to this because you're like, yeah, Crystal, I listened to your podcast because I'm trying to figure out how to fulfill this burning desire that I have to share a message. But what's funny is I didn't really feel like I had a message. I felt like I just wanted to talk and speak and offer something of value to other people. And that's still how I feel sometimes. Let's be honest, I've been doing this for a while and I still have those feelings of what the heck am I doing? Is this all gonna work out? But had I not hit publish and put myself out there, I wouldn't have been able to interview all the incredible people that I have been able to meet, to coach with, to interview. Like I've had Amy Porterfield on this podcast twice. I got to coach with Jade Warsaw and Rachel Cruz and meet Christy Wright and all these people that I had been following forever. If you don't know that story, I'm going to link to it in the show notes. I went to a Ramsey Solutions event in 2021, and Jade Warsaw, who is now the new Ramsey personality, she's incredible. Her and I coached together with Rachel, and it was just such an incredible experience. Like I have the biggest smile on my face when I talk about it because it was so fun. It was absolutely mind-blowing that I was invited to go do this, but none of it would have happened had I not started a podcast and had I not started reaching out to people and telling stories and saying, hey, do you want to come on my show and share your story? And this is how we can help people together and do all these things. Like none of this would have happened if I would have sat in that bubble of uncomfortability and just feeling like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this the right move? Is this the right decision? Like I did that for a long time before I hit publish. But then once I did, I still didn't feel super confident that what I was doing was the right thing, but I kept moving forward step by step, baby step by baby step, and putting one foot in front of the other. And I'm so, so grateful. So you just have to hit publish and put yourself out there. I know it's the hardest part. It's the hardest part, but it is the thing that has gotten to me to where I am today. So put yourself out there, right? Put yourself out there. Put yourself out into the world with confidence in your message. Even if you're not confident in how you do it, right? If the tech or the podcast, like all of that scares you a little bit, don't worry. I have 400 plus episodes that you can go listen to help you make that easier. But I want you to put yourself out there. Hit publish and put yourself out there because that is where the magic happens. That's where doors start opening that you're just like, oh my gosh, I never in my wildest dreams would I imagine that I'm getting asked to come to Ramsey Solutions and meet Dave Ramsey and speak to all these incredible people that I looked up to for so long. And then, go hang out with Amy Porterfield. This was at the Entrepreneur Experience in 2019. That was when I first got kind of into her world really seriously. And I got to meet her and speak with her. And then fast forward, a little bit later, and I was able to have her on my podcast. Like none of this would have happened had I not just put myself out there. So you have to embrace hitting the publish button and putting yourself out there. Okay, that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2. This one is one that I can only tell you in hindsight because it's a different perspective that I have today. And that is being in it for the long game changes your perspective. You have this total mindset shift when you go from, I made a mistake, it's terrible, I screwed everything up, this one episode's gonna tank, and it's just not gonna work out. That's how it feels when you're in the first 1 to 5 episodes of your podcast. You're like, is anybody going to listen? You're questioning everything. How often can I refresh my stats? Because I want to know, did one more person listen? Like all the things, like those first feelings when you're just launching something is so nerve-wracking. But then what isn't often talked about is you hit this stride and you're like a few episodes in, and then you're 20 episodes in, then maybe you're 50 episodes in, and you're like, am I still on the right track? Is this still the thing that I want to keep doing? Because it's maybe not growing as fast as you thought it would. Maybe you had seen other peers in your industry or other influencers that you follow start something, and then overnight they're this super successful, like they're going viral all the time and they're getting talked about doing all this. And you're like, damn, I did the same thing. Why is this not working for me? Why is this not working for me? So when you make that shift in perspective and you say, you know what? I'm in this for the long game. I'm in this to hit 400 episodes one day. It makes all the difference. Because what happens is you go to record an episode and you're like, you know what? It's not the best, but I got to put it out there. Like Crystal says, I have to be consistent. So I'm going to put my podcast out there. So you hit publish, you put it out there, and you try again next time. You try to make a really awesome piece of content the next time you go and wash, rinse, repeat. Because let me tell you the other scenario of what will happen is you go to record something and it's less than stellar, and you say, you know what, I'm going to edit this thing until it's perfect.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
You already know what happens. You know what happens. You don't publish it because you're sitting on it, you're thinking too much about it, and you're sitting there saying, well, it's just not as good as so-and-so's podcast, and I want it to be better. I want it to be fancier. I want it to be longer. I want it to be shorter. I want it to be more impactful. I want it to be this. I want it to be that. And oh my gosh, I'm here to tell you, I want you to be in it for the long game. I want you to hit publish on something that you don't love. Okay, did you hear what I said? I want you to hit publish on something that you don't love and be okay with it. I hope that you watch Friends and you know the episode that I'm referencing where they're trying to get Monica to like not pay her phone bill on time. They're like, oh, here's your phone bill. You can't pay it. Like wait until they give you a notice and then wait until they call you or wait until they're about to shut off your phone bill. And she's like, oh my gosh, like stop it. I can't handle it because she's trying to control everything and everything has to be perfect according to her. But whenever you let loose and you let your shoulders relax a little bit and you can say, you know what? It's okay if it's not perfect because I know that next month I have this whole open schedule where I can really dedicate to planning and interviewing. And I have these incredible guests coming that I'm okay with publishing something that is B+ work. I will never forget, I listened to this episode of Brooke Castillo and Amy Porterfield on the Life Coach School. The Life Coach School is Brooke Castillo's podcast. And Amy Porterfield had Brooke on her podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy. And it was about having B+ work or B- work even, just hitting publish because you're in it for the long game. It makes all the difference in the world. And if you have a terrible episode, it's okay. You're in it for the long game. Don't let it be the thing that stops you in your tracks and keeps you from recording again and again. Because you can go back to my podcast and listen to so many terrible episodes that I've had. In 400, let's just take a 10% of them are decent. They're not great. Then that's 40 episodes that are probably less than stellar, but you know what? They're still there and they are still getting downloads. Did you hear what I said? They're still there and they are still getting downloads. So it is totally fine to publish something that is less than A++ work. All right, let's move on to lesson number 3. This is going to be a weird one because it is something that is not going to apply to everybody that's a beginner. But it's the truth, and what I've learned in 400 episodes is I've learned the ins and outs of podcast ads. Now, I have learned what works, what doesn't work, and I have learned to adapt and experiment in a way that I never would have if I was in the first 10 episodes. And the reason why I say that is because they can be super powerful if done the right way. And I've figured out what the right way is for my show. Now, I have done pre-roll, I've done mid-roll, I've done post-roll, I've done long ads, short ads, I've done ones where I have somebody else doing the talking for me, I've done where I do it myself, I've done music in the background, and it's one of those things that I'm actually teaching in the new version of Proffitt Podcasting. So I've said this before, I'm redoing my course, and podcast ads is something I've been getting asked a lot about, and so it's just the thing that I figured out, and I teach it in a way that I don't see anybody else talking about online. So stay tuned for that. If you're a current, if you're in Proffitt Podcasting today, you're a current student, then don't worry. You get the updates whenever they come out to you. And if you haven't bought Proffitt Podcasting, don't worry. The new version's going to be released in just a few weeks, and I cannot wait because podcast ads, it's a mystery, and I've studied them and I've looked at them, and over 400 episodes, I have really figured out how you can make them so, so powerful. Lesson number 3, learning the ins and outs of podcast ads. Lesson number 4, this podcast is like my science lab. I feel like everything is an experiment. Like I'm the mad scientist behind the scenes. I am the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, and I'm trying to understand what works. So if new features come out, I'm specifically thinking about like Buzzsprout, right? Buzzsprout recently in the last few weeks released mid-roll ads for the podcast. Well, of course, I'm going to try those out, and I'm going to see how they work for me, and I'm going to share that information with you. I have figured out podcast ads. That's another thing. We just talked about that. I figured out show notes. I've figured out, guesting on other podcasts. I figured out how to really make an impact with SEO and trying new things. And I think that at the end of the day, it all comes down to not being afraid to experiment with my content so I can show you the things that I've learned. I think that that's like a big key. If you're in the education, coaching space, you can't be afraid to try things within your own content so you can show your people how things work. I think that if you operate from a level of, well, I'm the professor and I know everything and I'm just going to teach you, blah, 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 blah. Listen to me, do as I say, and don't make any mistakes. I hate those professors. Can I get an amen for all the terrible professors out there that you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And those people just seem so miserable to me. I mean, I digress, right? We're not going to go down that rabbit hole of why people are miserable. But I think that it's really important to just point out that you should continuously try new things, experiment, and A/B test to see what works, what doesn't, and how you can improve. And don't be afraid to use your podcast as a science lab. I've seen so many people say, well, it has to be done this way. And you put your content into a template and then you get bored. This is what happens. So often people come to me and say, I've been podcasting for a year. It doesn't excite me anymore. I used to love it. I don't love it anymore. And I don't know how to make it fun. And the first thing I usually say to them is, well, tell me your process. And they tell it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of boring. And it's not a criticism to their process. It's just, yeah, I would probably scratch my eyes out if I had to do that every week too. That doesn't even make sense to me. Or why wouldn't you try this? Or why don't you try to talk to this kind of guest? Or have you ever considered adding guests if you've only done solo shows? Or have you ever considered doing solos if you've only done interviews? Have you ever considered doing it 10 minutes shorter? Have you ever tried 10 minutes longer? Have you ever tried doing a daily show or a series? Like there's so many ways that you can experiment with your content. And so the thing that I've learned in 400 episodes is to continuously be looking for opportunities to experiment and try new things, to spice things up and keep it fun. Because that is the only reason why I am here 400 episodes later, is because I continuously look for ways to make podcasting fun. I would have quit after episode 4 if this was not fun. This is so much fun to me. When people ask me, how have you published over 1,200 episodes between your two podcasts? Like, I don't understand. How do you have a daily show? How can you publish stuff Monday through Friday and not be so sick of podcasting? And the truth is, I love it. I love it so so much. And it's because it's not a stale relationship. I mean, I told you at the very beginning, I felt a little awkward. I'm like, oh, I forgot my podcast's birthday. Like, I hope it doesn't hate me. But at the end of the day, I know that I have 400 more episodes of this show in me. I'm in it for the long game. Like, we're blending all the lessons together now at this point, but I'm in it. I'm here to stay because I love it so, so much. So I encourage you to find things where you can experiment with your content, spice things up, and keep it a little saucy. All right, last lesson, which is funny. I called this a lesson, and it's not a lesson. It's more of the highlights of the show, because people often ask me, well, how many downloads are good and how many is too many downloads? I mean, let's be real. Can you have too many downloads? No. I meant to say how many downloads is good, because this is the question I get asked a lot. And I'm just going to be very transparent with you. And I don't often do this. I will share my downloads here and there, but I just thought, you know what? Let's just pull back the curtain. We're celebrating here. We're getting a little vulnerable. Maybe you can be like, you're like a few glasses of champagne in. Maybe you're talking about the things you shouldn't be talking about. Well, here I am. I'm sharing about my downloads because I get asked, and sometimes I share, sometimes I don't. And I just want to be transparent with you. So I've been podcasting for 5 years. And I have over 400 episodes. I actually have 417. So this is like, oh, wait, did you just lie to us and you celebrated your 400th episode, but really you're way older than that? Yeah, I am. I kind of lied about my age because I actually have 417. Like, I went into Buzzsprout and I looked. I have 417 episodes published on this podcast, but that includes bonus content and things like shorter episodes that I published. So altogether, I have 417, but really I have 400. Like, this is episode 400 if you were to put a number to it. And the total number of downloads, I have 206,919. Now, again, that's cumulative over all the podcast. And I have around 5 episodes that have more than 1,000 downloads. Now, why am I sharing this with you, right? Well, there's so many reasons, because people will say, well, Crystal, you have millions of downloads, right? Nope, I sure don't. I haven't hit that. I haven't even hit a 500,000 mark. Okay. And I've been doing this for 5 years. And the reason why I share that is because that doesn't make my podcast, my business, or my message less important because I don't have these super, super big numbers. And I think that this will be something that I look back on in the future and say, man, do you remember when you didn't even have 1 million downloads? Like, that felt like yesterday. Because again, I'm in it for the long game. So I'm not in it to go viral tomorrow. I'm here for another 400 episodes. That's how I look at it. And what really excites me, this is especially if you're just getting started, I want you to go into the locations tab. If you're a Buzzsprout user, go into your stats and go into locations. And I want you to look at the number of countries and locations that your podcast has reached, because this is where it takes it from downloads and numbers and stats. And I really feel like I can see a global view of who my audience is, because it makes it more contextual to who you are. It's not just another number. I can actually go in and see, oh my gosh, there's 163 countries where someone has downloaded this podcast. 163. That blows my mind every single time. And I love that in Buzzsprout, you can see like the world map, and it'll show like a percentage here and a percentage there. And I mean, I'm talking about countries I'd never even heard of have listened and downloaded this podcast. And it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind, because it's one thing if you see, like, you go into your Google Analytics and you see someone on your website was from all these different countries. You're like, okay, yeah, that's probably a bot. That's probably a bot. But I don't think many bots are listening to this podcast. So thank you so much for everybody that listens to this. And I want to share, it's kind of fun, the top 5 cities. So my top 5 cities of all time, this isn't just recently, this is of all time, is Atlanta, Georgia. So shout out to Atlanta. You are number 1. The second is Houston, Texas. The third is Dallas, Texas. The fourth is Austin, Texas. And the fifth is Chicago, Illinois. Those are my top 5 cities. And it's so fun to again, think about the global reach of this podcast. And the next one is New South Wales. So Australia, you like right there, right on the edge. You almost made it to number 5. But I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. And I'm happy to share that you can listen to my stats, you can hear my countries, and I'm still in the top 1.5% of global podcast. So this is super interesting. I'm going to link to listen notes in the show notes, but you can go to listennotes.com and look up your podcast rank, and it will tell you, where do you fall in the global podcast of the world? How is your podcast doing? And mine's in the top 1.5%. So again, I'm super grateful for every single one of you that listens to the show on a regular basis, or even if you only catch it every once in a while. I'm so happy that you celebrated today with me, because 400 episodes, like, wow, again, it's not about being viral or having a quick win or getting 1 million downloads tomorrow. For me, it's about being in it for the long game and staying over the long haul, seeing the peaks, seeing the valleys or the valleys and the value in this journey. And again, I am just super, super grateful because I'm open to possibilities. I'm open to possibilities that I never saw coming. And again, 400 episodes. If you would have told me in 2018, you're going to publish a show and in just a few years, you're going to hit 400 episodes, I would have said, what are you even talking about? I don't even know how my microphone works. But here we are today. So thank you so much for listening. That's all I have for you. So make sure you are following or subscribed to the podcast wherever you are listening. I would love for you to take a screenshot where you're listening and share it on Instagram and tag me, and let's celebrate 400 episodes together. But that's all I have for you. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Proffitt Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.